Hello, my name is Nathan Estrada, and I'm here today to talk to you about the guitar, more specifically, heavy metal guitar. Now, heavy metal guitar sounds very brutal and aggressive and fierce, and it can come off as kind of intimidating to the beginner guitarist who's maybe just interested in starting to play heavy metal guitar. Heavy metal guitar is actually pretty simple, but it does have a specific sound that can be more tricky to get than you would think. Luckily, with a few little tips, you can make it much easier on yourself to get that aggressive, tight, heavy metal guitar tone that you really want to have when getting started playing this kind of music. The first thing you're going to need when you start to play heavy metal guitar is, of course, a guitar. I have here my Paul Reed Smith Mark Holcomb Special Edition, which is a little bit more of an expensive guitar, but honestly, you can play heavy metal music on any guitar from any price range, with the caveat being you kind of want to look for something with humbucking pickups. Now, pickups are these rectangles you see here, these black rectangles. Those are the magnets that pick up the sound coming off the vibrating strings. And we go for humbucking pickups for a couple different reasons. Number one being that single coil pickups actually have a harder time handling the distortion and the amount of noise that comes from the sound we use for our heavy metal guitar tone. We use a lot of overdrive and distortion, and those single coil pickups, they tend to let a lot of feedback through and noise, and you don't really want that. We want tightness and we want aggression. The other reason we go with humbucking pickups is that they actually, by default, kind of have a higher output to them. They have a little bit more bass, whereas the single coil pickups have a trebly sound. The bass is key to kind of forming that chunk that we are looking for in our metal tone. For starter guitars, you're really looking probably at around $200 for something decent quality. I suggest the Epiphone Les Pauls for around that price range. They're very well built. They have good components in them, and they just have a pretty great sound overall if you're looking for metal or rock. But specifically for metal, they do carry you quite a ways. Now, the next thing you're going to need is an amplifier, and this is where it gets a little bit more tricky. You can play heavy metal guitar on pretty much any guitar with humbucking pickups, but amps are more important than you would imagine. You want to have an amp with usable distortion, and that is something you kind of are going to have a hard time finding on these cheaper $100 amps that you might see with the combo packs. You know, you go to Guitar Center, you see those packages that have a Squier Stratocaster that comes with a little amplifier. Those are fine and good for practicing with a clean tone, but for heavy metal distortion, you really want a tight, very clear distortion that is not available on those. Amps you should really be looking at are maybe going up to the $200 range for a Boss Katana or a Yamaha THR-10X. Both have excellent distortion tones, but the better option, in my opinion, would be to go with what you're hearing today, the Amplitube computer software. And that is an all-in-one computer software that you take your guitar, you find a cable that has a USB in, plug it directly in your computer, and voila, you have everything you could possibly want. You have amps, pedals, different kinds of plugins, recording software, it's all there. And it sounds pretty convincing. You heard a little bit at the beginning of the video. For what it's worth, I think it's a great sound, and it's cheap, only $100, and well deserved a place in your library, especially since it can be played at low volumes, which, let's be honest, if you're living in a dorm or an apartment, can be an issue. The next thing you're going to really want is a pedal, an overdrive pedal to be specific. And the reason for this is that the overdrive pedal is going to be what tightens up your sound and gives you that iconic heavy metal chug. Now, most guitarists, whenever they go to play metal, they're tempted to grab that distortion dial and crank it up to 10 right off the bat, and that is simply something you do not want to do. Adding too much distortion leads to a flubby, muddy tone that sounds more like a wall of farts than the aggressive, brutal sound that you're really going for. Instead, you want to grab an overdrive pedal. I have here my Boss Super Overdrive that I use. Some people prefer a Tube Screamer. I use a Super Overdrive. What you want to do with that is take it and turn the drive all the way down, but the volume up, and use it as something of a boost, like a volume boost to your sound. It's going to take that natural distortion on your amp, which you should have set around 5 to 7, and boost it up, giving it a clear, fierce sound and giving you that iconic chug, that thing. You want that. You want that to be very clear and concise. You don't want mud. It's very important. You cannot get that with just regular distortion. You really want to tighten it up and make it sound clear and concise. That's the key to heavy metal guitar. You might be tempted to go and find yourself something like a distortion pedal. This is a Boss Distortion that I had lying around. And this is also kind of a trap for beginning heavy metal guitarists. A distortion pedal will get you distortion, but it will be more of a fizzy, it's just thinner and weak sounding distortion that doesn't lend itself to the strong heavy metal tone we are looking for. Now, once you have your amp, your guitar, and your pedal, you're pretty much ready to roll. There isn't much more to it. Heavy metal sound is very subjective. Aside from the idea that we want to get a clear, kind of fearsome sound where every note sounds out clearly, it's all about forging it to your own tastes and what you want to do. What I do today is a good basis, but you, on your journey, just need to go out and find something you like and roll with it. Heavy metal guitar is simple, but that sound is very specific and kind of tricky to find. Thankfully, knowing the basics makes it so much easier to get started and ready to just jump in and start banging out those heavy metal guitar licks. My name's Nathan Estrada. You all have a great night and stay metal.